Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Business Method Podcast today, and I'm excited to welcome Lindsey Heppner to the show. Lindsey's the founder of Vamped, one of the top recognizable influencer agencies out there today. Lindsey became successful in the social media marketing world, starting her company Vamped more than 7 years ago. Within 2 years ago, became a multi-million dollar agency, adding multiple services to the brand, and she pioneered the concept of influencer tours. In the early days of influencer marketing, Lindsey quickly discovered a need in the market for managing influencers at the same time as creating and producing campaigns for global brands. To date, Lindsey and her team have executed over 1,200 successful social media campaigns. She's worked with top brands like McDonald's, Dior, BB, Harley Davidson, Under Armour, L'Oreal Paris, Bumble, W Hotels, Puma, Pacific Sun, American Express, and my favorite watch company, Movement. And the list goes on and on and on. Today, actually, I should have wore my Movement watch. I didn't do that. Today, we are going to chat with her about digital entrepreneurship, social media icons, building her company around influencer marketing, and her creative visionary process. Lindsey, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm
Thanks.
excited.
Thanks for coming on. I'm glad to have you. Did we get your intro right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm always like, wow, that's me.
I know. Do you ever? I have that same thing. Like if somebody else writes my bio and then they read it, I'm like, wow, I'm kind of cool. Like I've done some neat, done
Yeah,
some really
exactly.
awesome things. And then same thing. So I always like when we write our bios, create our bios, always aim to make them, honest, but also flat. Just giving some really solid facts, and then it kind of warms the person up to come on the podcast, so we have a good show. So, so
Yeah,
welcome. Are you in? Is
thank
LA?
you.
Is that your home base?
Yeah, I'm in LA for the
Cool.
last 6 years.
Is that where you're from originally, or where are you originally from?
I'm from Orange County. I
Okay.
grew up in Surf City, Huntington Beach.
Okay. Very cool. Nice. So you're a true California girl, right?
I guess so. I don't know. I mean, I grew up by the beach and I grew up surfing, and my dad wanted a boy and he got a girl. So I feel like I've always been kind of tomboyish,
Uh-huh.
but I always felt like the bubble of Orange County wasn't big enough for me. So
Hmm.
LA seemed good.
Is that a better bubble to be in for you?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, yes, because there's more opportunity, and I feel like people up here are really, really creative, and I
Yeah.
love to create not only through my clothes or through paint, but like just I like to be an outspoken, like make a lot of noise kind of person, and I feel
Hmm.
like I didn't have that opportunity as much in Orange County.
Hmm.
And people out here want to meet other people and want to um, build their relationships and build their network. And I think there's just so much more culture up here. So I really enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, I love influencer marketing and digital entrepreneurship. And I don't know if you know, but we did a series, we do podcast series. So we did 100 interviews with 100 major influencers. And then we did another 100 interviews of people that run seven figure digital remote businesses. And
Mhm.
so this combination that you have of influencer marketing and digital entrepreneurship really inspires me as well. Just curious, like before we dive into things, why do you love these things, influencer marketing and digital entrepreneurship?
I feel like I fell into it uh, at the time that social media wasn't even of relevancy.
Hmm.
It was just a platform to be creative and, take pictures and be, curating things. And I kind of saw an opportunity because I grew up modeling, I grew up designing for other brands, and I felt like I wanted to showcase my work on something. And at first, I wanted to be a blogger for fitness because I did a lot of fitness and
Hmm.
I'm obsessed with working out. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is too much work. This is
Uh-huh.
way too much work. So then, I went for my second passion, which was creative directing. And I always knew that I wouldn't be able to be someone's creative director unless someone at the company like died. Because like back then, literally you were, you know, just your heels were stuck into the ground and you were the creative
Right.
director for like years,
Right.
and you'd have to wait till they got over that position,
Yeah.
which was never, because it was such an amazing position to have. So I I mean, I don't know how deep you want me to go into this, but I got into a really bad car accident in 2014, and that reevaluated my life
Mm-hmm.
after being like in a near-death experience. And I knew the only way I would be a creative director is if I did it myself.
Yeah.
So when social media was kind of developing, I saw this in on working with brands that I knew and my network, because I was really heavily in the surf industry. So I worked with Billabong, Volcom, all these brands, and I used them as an opportunity to showcase my work.
Uh-huh.
So I would reach out to them, take their clothes, go make content, like go to Palm Springs, all these places, and kind of use myself as the platform or as like the branding. And then I started getting clients to pay me to make their campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working with girls in the space that had like this crazy following, which no one knew how they got it. It was just like, you know, it was almost like MySpace and stuff. Like, how did you get all these followers?
Right.
And then one of them actually was like, hey, can you manage me? And I was like, manage you for what? You know? And she was like, I'm getting all these emails. So I took over her account, and people were just, I'll pay whatever to have her post.
Uh-huh.
And at that time it was the wild, wild west. So like prices were like, whatever, we're like 600 for this, 300 for that, you know, like we
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know what we were doing. And so after I saw that you could be monetized on Instagram, I started reaching out to people that had following, and I kind of just started selecting like the it girls and, you know, setting up meetings with them and telling them they could get paid on this platform. And they're like, what are you talking about? So, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it was like asking people to get paid on MySpace. It's like,
Yeah.
how are we getting paid? You know?
Yeah.
So it was a really new concept, and I just saw that it was going to be booming. And then I noticed also that normal talent agencies didn't want these people. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, I'm going to make my own agency with these group of girls and guys. It started to turn into guys, but group of girls. And I'm just going to be their new agent because that's where the market's going. So that's what happened. Like Vamp, that's what Vamp started being. We started, you know, creating content. We started managing influencers. And then my third big concept was to bring all these influencers together and travel with them. And that was a really, really scary thing to do, because at that time I had to convince people to spend a lot of money for these
Right.
people to travel. And no one could understand, why would they do that? Why would we spend so much money?
What year was this?
2015,
And
2014.
you're getting
Yeah.
sponsors to sponsor the trips or the info? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
got it.
Yeah, and no one wanted anything to do with it. Even
Mm-hmm.
to the director of movement, I had an interview with him on his podcast, and he was like, I remember that email. He's like, we were like, what are you talking about?
Uh-huh.
He's like, I remember you trying to pitch this idea. And so we finally got a client to say yes, and they saw the vision, and we went to Hawaii for a week with 15 people. It was the biggest deal on social media.
Uh-huh.
And so we were being after that, it was just, yeah, it blew up, and now we're, you know, 23 trips later, you know. So,
Right.
and this is a big business for a lot of brands now too. PacSun and Revolve, and I mean, they grew their whole business around that kind of idea.
Absolutely. So rewinding back to the start, first off, I think like as a creative director, quote unquote creative director, you know, how good of a creative director can one be if they can't create their own way of directing their own creative work, right?
Yes.
And so it's like the system is set up for people that want to be creative directors to work for years, not being the main creative director, then getting that job and holding on to it for so long. But, you know, if you really want to do it, you've got to use your own creativity to create some form of opportunity for you. And that's what you did, which is, you know, amazing. And before we, you know, go in more in the nuts and bolts of the business and what you do, I'd like to ask you if we can dive deeper into the experience of the car crash
Mm-hmm.
and having a pivotal experience like that to shift kind of your mindset. So if you don't, if you can, if you're open to it, talking more about that car crash, how close to death were you? Because we've interviewed other people that have had near death experiences, and it's pretty phenomenal their mindset shift before and after, and then where their life goes. So if you're open to it, maybe chatting more about that.
Yeah, of course. You know, at that time, I had a lot of great opportunities. I was, you know, head designer at a swimwear line, which I thought was my dream job.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that I was dating at that time, I was like, okay, this is the guy I'm going to marry. All these things were kind of just like, I guess you could say the peak of like how I felt was, you know, I'm set.
Right.
And then everything kind of, you know, unfolded and broke. And because of that, I got really, really depressed. And it was a moment of like, I don't know how to get out of this depression. And
Mm-hmm.
it turned into a year. And honestly, I feel like the position I'm in right now, you know, just kind of sending out knowledge to people and even podcasting, I feel like it's always good to give back on what you know and like everything. And I think that is a huge reason why I started podcasting as well, is because that moment of being depressed for a year, I would go on to TED Talks every single day
Mm-hmm.
and try to find something that was uplifting and made me feel better about myself and made me actually get up to go to work, because I honestly didn't want to live. I was every day
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to live. And the day that I got into my car accident, it was actually 6 a.m. I was coming back from the gym, and this car was in the intersection on my green. So he was like rolling into the intersection. He might have been on his phone or something, but he didn't realize that he was actually moving into the intersection.
Okay.
And I was driving 70 because it was the day after Christmas. You know, the day after Christmas, no one's on the road. So I was driving pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And when people, you know, I feel like everyone has this same kind of thing that happens, is when you know that something's going to happen like that, you kind of rewind and do this whole like, my whole life is going before my eyes, but
Right.
in slow motion.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. It was like, oh my gosh, like, is this it? Like, is this the moment where everything ends? And I, at that time, was so depressed that I was okay with it, you know? And
Mm.
so I didn't break. I let it happen. And I remember just letting go. I was just like, this is my time, and I'm ready to go. And the next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital. I didn't break any bones. I fractured my C4, C5, and you know, all my nerve system was like on fire and everything. But the doctor was shocked that I didn't die.
Yeah.
And he said, and I told him, I'm like, well, I didn't break. And that was the thing. He's like, if you would have broke, you would either died or you would have been paralyzed for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And that's why people, when they're drunk, they survive car accidents,
Yeah.
because they're so loose and they like kind of, you know, don't know what's happening. And so he was like, since you didn't do anything and you didn't freak out and you didn't, you know, hold stiff and all that stuff, you actually survived your accident.
Wow.
So after that, it was kind of like, I really did see in myself that I was supposed to be here still,
Right.
you know. And I believe in God, and I believe in a higher power, and that moment I feel like I did get saved. And that not only made me want to build the dreams and the goals that I've always wanted, but it also made me in a position to be a better person for other people.
Yeah.
And even too in this industry, because I used to model and I hated it. I felt so taken advantage of. Um, People wanted me to sleep with them to, get ahead and all these things. And like, I just felt like, wow, this is a really dark space,
Yeah.
in this industry. And I don't want to be that for the people that I manage and the clients that I work with. I don't want to do anything that's not true and values to who I am. And I feel like, it takes some pretty strong people to stick up for others and to develop things and not go with the grain, but go against the grain.
Right.
And I feel like I really tried to do that. And I was like, you know what, if I'm not successful for being a good person, then that's fine. But if I am, then, and I make a mark on this world for being true to who I am, then I'm gonna be excited about that. And
Yeah.
I feel like ever since then, and it's been 7 years now with my business, and we're known around the world as an agency, I think I did a pretty good job and
Mhm.
keeping true to myself and still being a good person. So,
This
yeah.
is the question I like to ask entrepreneurs. I think, the value of a person is definitely rooted in the values that they hold, the morals that they
Hmm.
hold. And it sounds like you've become very good at that through the experiences that you've had. And sometimes it's our worst suffering that makes us really rooted in those values, our hardest points in our lives. Do you ever feel, and I'm asking this because I feel this at times, and I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. Do you ever feel like those values are either being tested, and if so, or you're reaching the boundaries of those values throughout business or engagements or partnerships you may have, or people that you're working with? And if so, when do you recognize that those boundaries are close or have exceeded the boundaries of, your values, your ethics? And how do you kind of reroute yourself? What's your process of kind of rerouting yourself in those and then making a shift to get back on the right path?
Yeah. I think I'm getting tested every day. The industry I'm in is jumping hurdles.
Right. True.
And if you're not ready to jump hurdles, you shouldn't be in this business of any type of industry where you have to kind of showcase yourself and create content and be kind of out there. Every day you're making people understand who you are, or you're becoming an imposter and pretending all day. So I think that the hurdle is different every day, but in some retrospect, it's like it's testing me on like, how are you going to take advantage of this opportunity, or um, how are you going to be a better person that helps your clients or helps your talent?
Mm-hmm.
And I had actually an in-person meeting with a new client yesterday, and they were shocked on like how I present myself as an agency. It was like we were just friends and we hung out, and I got to know them and got to know their story and who they are as people,
Yeah.
and not always worried about like what is their business going to do for us. And I was there for 5 hours. We had breakfast and then we had lunch, and then I was like, am I going to be here for dinner too? So
Uh-huh.
um, the approach that I do and what I want my team to do is get to know someone first and really build that relationship from the core and deep roots. And I love getting to know people's hearts and why they do what they do. And what makes me a better, business partner for them is knowing why they're doing what they're doing, and what makes them thrive and happy and excited to go on to the next day to become a successful business owner. I mean, I am so lucky that 7 years later, I'm still loving what I do,
Yeah.
and I'm not having to, pivot into some different person to actually enjoy what I love. And I think what has helped me throughout this whole process is not focusing on the money, but focusing on the excitement of building and creating. And I've turned down a lot of work based on if the person that I'm working with even aligns with who I am,
Mm-hmm.
because every single day you have to actually work with that person.
Yeah.
And if you don't enjoy working with that person, you are sucking the life out of yourself and having to please a person that maybe not even knows how to please themselves.
Yeah.
So if you come into a partnership with someone and they're not happy, I mean, do you want to even date them? You
No.
know, it's like it's dating, and then it turns into marriage if you are, you know, becoming a client with them. You talk to them every day. They, you know, they treat you a certain way. So I look at it as a relationship, as dating. Can we date? Can we talk every day and enjoy dating?
Yeah.
And if we can't, I don't think my time is valuable to you, because I'm going to be pushing you away. I'm going to be avoiding your calls, like all this stuff. So I really do think that it's a dance. It's a dance. And if you can't dance well with your partner, I don't think it's worth it.
I agree. And it's so not ironic, but interesting how similar dating and business is, right? Even the
Yeah.
courting process and getting to know one another, and then, forming partnerships and creating long-term agreements, and NDAs and everything. And
Yes.
it's like, oh, it's marriage. It's the exact same process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, I've probably back then when my mom was, doing business and everything, like in, the baby boomer era, you didn't have that many opportunities. There wasn't as many businesses. Like you had to like just say yes to it.
Hmm.
And also too, the sales process was different. I mean, you were more of a schmoozer. You were, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was all like talk, 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 and people really enjoyed that type of sales.
Yeah.
I feel like now the whole industry is changing, and people want empathy. People want you to like be overly empathetic to them
Yeah.
and understanding who they are as a human. And there's so much, there's, like you said, how you loved movement watches. I mean, there probably used to be maybe 3 watches back then. Now there's, you know what I mean? If I didn't get movement, I'll get this one. And
Right.
it's just, I feel like I'm not going to put my energy to something that doesn't give me good energy back. And the reason why I've even more become like that is because I had Lyme disease for 11 months,
Hmm.
and I cured myself from Lyme disease. And I realized when you're that sick, the toxicities, the energies, and people that are around you in your environment is really, really important and crucial.
Yeah.
And that has to do with your friends, your family, your clients, your business, everything. If everything is feeling like a sickness, I was going to definitely stay sick,
Yeah.
So just knowing that health is super important, that is also translated in the people I work with. Like, are you going to be healthy for me?
Yeah.
And if you're not, I don't care how much money you have, but are you going to be healthy for me? Because
100%.
I want healthy people around me.
The one thing that I think digital entrepreneurship and the internet has really opened up is we've seen more opportunities to operate as collaborators and not so much as competitors. And in the old
Mm-hmm.
days, you had one city that you were working and living in, and it was competitive to be the creative director, or competitive to be the top salesman, or competitive to
Yeah.
start a new business. And you always have, the old story of your enemy or your nemesis, right? That you competed against, and you worked really hard, and they worked really hard, and then you came out on top, and then you were the successful one. But now it's like, because we have so many opportunities with the internet, we can collaborate and we can say, hey, I don't like working with this person. I know not that
Yeah.
they're a bad person always, or a bad company. It's just not the best fit for us. And there's multiple other avenues that you can go down and you can find. Which leads me to, it's like you mentioned that there's a lot of dark spaces in the influencer industry. When I told a friend of mine that I was going to interview 100 major influencers, he looked at me and he was like, I mean, influencers aren't that interesting. Why are you going to spend, 2 years interviewing? And I'm like, I love influencers. I think they're some of the most interesting people in the world. And we all have a significant amount of influence, whether we know it or not. And we're applying that in our lives. And I want to get behind the science of people that do that ethically on a big level, a large level. So, I'd love to chat about, maybe some of the dark spaces that you see in the industry, the challenges, being in LA, you probably see it much more than, I'm in Austin, so it's a much different scene. Some of the challenges of working with that, and how you maintain staying away from that or staying out of that and making sure that people you work with aren't going down those rabbit holes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think starting off in LA and going down the wrong rabbit hole is really, really easy when you're younger and
Right.
not picking up the signs or picking up people's like motives to be around you and the opportunities that they see that you don't see.
Yeah.
And I think it only took with age, understanding that not everyone is out for your best intentions.
Right.
They're out for their own intentions. And, you know, LA has a lot of amazing people, and LA has a lot of very scary people. And I think just being a little bit more aware of, okay, why am I having this conversation with this client or this talent or this person? And what are their goals? What are their motives? And who are they becoming and who are they hanging out with? And I truly believe that your circle is who you are,
Mm-hmm.
So just understanding that in itself and knowing who hangs out with who and who's around who, you can kind of get a sense of, are they a good person or are they not? Because if they're praising this person, then they're obviously very similar.
Right.
So I I vet a lot of people, especially for talent management. I vet people because I want to. I'm a very much a momager. Like I
A
am.
momager? I've never heard that.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
I am a momager. I,
Uh-huh.
I'm the I'm the girl that all the talent come to if they're sick, if they need help with like a birthday. I have really become that kind of person to my talent, and
Uh-huh.
I really do enjoy it because I love helping others. But when that with that comes with me understanding, okay, the relationship that I have with my talent, are they very much in line with who I am?
Uh-huh.
Like we said, in previous conversation. And, people are very good at wearing a mask, but that mask wears off, after a couple months, no matter who you are. And that's when you see true colors.
Mm-hmm.
And for business, it's not worth it. Once that mask comes off and you show me who you really are, I'm either over it. So influencers, most influencers nowadays are very vulnerable in the space and they show more who they are and there's no fakeness around it. But there still are influencers that are, either are separating it or they're not separating it and they've turned into their alter ego
Mm-hmm.
and they've become this person because the media wants them to become that person.
Right.
And sometimes it's really hard for me to communicate with those kind of people because it's not really who they are. And it's really hard for me to have small talk. It's hard for me to have surface conversations or anything that's like one layered because I'm a very deep layered person. So I try to steer away from those people that are in my community. And they're more of a, if my client wants to work with them, that's fine. But the community that I've built is more deep layered people.
Right. I like that. Um, let's talk more about influencer marketing, the good side of it, the light side of it, right?
Mhm.
And I saw some stats on your website, on Vamped website. 92% of consumers trust recommendations from influencers over an ad or celebrity endorsements, which I think is pretty impressive. And these are generally probably
Yeah.
influencers that they're following, correct? People that they've um, gained some trust with, or that they've decided to trust, right? And they'll follow those recommendations. You also said on the website 11 times higher ROI from influencer marketing over traditional forms of marketing, which is a really impressive stat because in traditional forms of marketing, are you Is that statistic come from, maybe direct sales marketing, or
Door to door.
door to door? What are the flyers? Put the flyers in the mail, add the flyers in the mail and send them out, that not a lot of people do anymore. Yeah. And that's why I see, like, from an early age, I saw the power of influence, in getting to the customers and clients, but also building a movement or a tribe, of people that are kind of following this influencer, or you yourself, if you are an influencer. And it's easy to, like, the thing I love about personal brands is that, if you're into something and you have a following and you have a network and you have a tribe of people that are following you, and then the next week you're into something else, you can talk about that and then get to your whole tribe to follow that, whatever you're into at the time. Maybe it's ice baths, or makeup or clothes or travel or whatever it may be. And then somewhere around 255 million is spent on influencer marketing every month. Is that in the U.S. or is that globally? Do you know?
Globally.
Globally, yeah. And I
It's
am.
supposed to be, it's supposed to be, I guess, in a year, because I had a conversation with a brand yesterday
Mm-hmm.
about 2 trillion in the next year or two
Yeah, I believe
globally.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be insane. And the thing is with social our influencers and how they influence more is like, it's a perfect example of why reality TV does so well.
Yeah.
People feel more connected to those kind of people than famous people, because famous people are put on a pedestal. It's something that you want to in some way achieve or be like,
Mm-hmm.
you aspire to be. But people like reality stars, the reason why they have such high purchasing power is because you are looking at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
You're like, I am that person. I do day drink. I do get crazy, like, and you relate yourself to that person, which means if they're purchasing, let's say, stuff from Target, you're like, I shop at Target. Oh
Uh-huh.
my gosh, yes, I want to get that candle too, because that is me. I'm seeing myself. So the reason why they are so much more of a consumer, a consumer what am I trying to say? um, Building up consumer purchasing and every purchase power is
Uh-huh.
because you are able to relate to someone. You are able to see their flaws, and you can digest that.
Right.
Whereas when someone who is a celebrity, you can't connect with them. I can't connect knowing you have a Benz Rolls Royce outside your house. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not what I'm doing. I'm living in the Midwest, and my kid needs diapers from Walmart. Like, that's the thing. It's like they'd rather trust an influencer than trust a celebrity who they can't connect with.
Yeah. What are, for people that are, well, everybody, kind of follows an influencer, whether they realize it or not. But for people that are, what are some things you would tell people, Lindsey, to say, when you are looking to trust an influencer and buy what they recommend or do what they recommend? What are some things to look for to make sure that we know that it's a good influencer to follow? You know what I mean? Like, is it, uh, be,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
because
sure.
there's a lot of sloppy influence out there, right? What are some things to look for to know, like, okay, this is a person I'm pretty sure that I can trust, and I'm going to follow that person.
I think if you're following someone after a while and you realize that suddenly they're just promoting every single product under the sun, and it's not, organic, I think that's when like, okay, this person isn't really like, they're doing it for the money. And
Right.
and that only works for so long, because the fact that people want real truth. And there is a lot of influencers actually now that only will support a product if they really like it and they believe in it. And so that he holds value to a lot of their audience,
Mm-hmm.
that they know this influencer is only showcasing products they actually would use day to day. So I think you can kind of read the BS after a while. We've been on this platform for a good amount of time now, and those people I think are going away, and they don't have as much purchasing power now as the people that are actually been since day one, believable and honest about what they promote.
Yeah. Um, what would you tell somebody? Well, okay, first, if you were starting out from zero, Lindsey, knowing what you know now, what would you do? What would you do to start over, building a new business, new influence, da 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 da? Where would you start?
Someone actually asked me 6 months ago to start their own agency and like help them, and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a that's a big project to
I'm
undertake.
good.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm exhausted. Um, yeah, you have to have a lot of skin in the game to start over. Well, we're always building and developing new things and new brands and partnerships, and it's always been a fun ride for me to start developing new things. But I think this year more than ever, it doesn't matter how big your following is, you are an influencer. If you are on social media, you are influencing somebody.
Yeah.
If you want to know that or not, you are an influencer. And you don't have to have a million followers to be an influencer. Every single influencer started off with 10 or 20, followers, but all those followers are people that are like, I want to watch you. I want to know what you do. I want to be influenced by you. So I think this is the perfect time to brand yourself. And I really feel like it's really important in 2021 to be the forefront of your business, because when people understand who you are, they will believe anything you purchase and anything you're promoting. So if you are promoting that book, or you are promoting, your new clothing line or whatever, if they fall in love with you, they're going to fall in love with everything you have behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel like that is what's changing, is like, stop putting your brand in front and being like, don't look at me, don't look at, what I
Yeah.
mean? This is what you need to look at, this shiny toy. Stop doing that. You need to put it behind you. Go, oh, and guess what? I also have this,
Yes. I like that.
So I really feel that's what's important nowadays. And people are always so worried on, how do I start? How do I do this? Just start. Like, you're going to develop into something else anyways. No matter how you start, you develop into something. So if you're a caterpillar right now, guess what? The only way is up, and you turn into a butterfly. So you just need to push content out, whatever that looks like. But at least people are aware that you're doing something,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be perfect. I think even too, what social media has shown us is imperfection is actually better. I
Mm-hmm.
see all these girls that are coming out showing, that they have zits, that they don't want to be face tuned anymore, and how beautiful that is,
Yeah.
So I really think that's the same thing as branding. It's like, okay, maybe you don't have, a team behind you, but you still are human, and you still know how to represent yourself. You walk outside every day and you introduce yourself to new people. Why can't you do that on your platform that you have for free? And a lot of people don't take advantage of what's free in front of them. Think about how we had to do marketing before. We literally had to knock on doors and hope the door didn't slam in our face.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So now you have this platform where you don't even have to go outside your house. You can still be in your PJs and promote your shit.
Yeah. Facebook and Instagram's knocking on the doors for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, think of how far we've come, and how much you have this like safety net. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can hide from the world. And I don't think people really take enough advantage of the opportunity they have in front of them.
You know who a global brand that I think has done a really good example of what you're talking about is the UFC. And so if you compare like the UFC to NFL, right? Everybody that knows anything about the UFC knows who the CEO and founder of the UFC is. In fact, you can hop on social media, you can follow him and see all these clips on YouTube, Instagram, any social media platform. The UFC founder, Dana White, is in there introducing the guys that are going to fight and pre-fights. He's at every fight. He's there talking to the fighters, and he has done an amazing job at letting everybody into into his world, and he's very transparent about everything. He's, you know, when people ask him about, hey, could you get this fight together? He's like, nah, that's not one we can get together. Or, yeah, that's one we tried to get together and those guys just couldn't make it happen for whatever reason. And he's done a great job at that. Nobody knows who's running the NFL. Like, unless you're like an NFL like super fan, right? You
Yeah.
know, nobody,
Yeah.
what's going on behind the scenes of the NFL, nobody knows. And
Exactly.
that's the power of influencer marketing, when you can say, like, I want to, my favorite brands in the world, I want to know who's running Movement. I want to know what they're doing. You know, I want to listen to their podcast. I want to listen to Vamp's podcast. I want to figure out, you know, how Lindsey builds her business, this sort of thing, how Dana White builds, you know, such a global brand as a UFC. And it creates like a stronger, authentic connection, right? You can relate to it. Like,
Totally.
I feel like I know Dana White because I love the UFC, I love jiu-jitsu and what's going on with it, but I don't know what's going on with the NFL or any other sports industry.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, it's so funny you say Dana, because my best guy friend is his best friend. I
Oh,
grew up
wow.
in UFC world. So
Oh, cool.
that,
Yeah.
I mean, that, yeah, that came out of Huntington.
Uh-huh.
So all those people I know very well. And exactly, I think that was actually a great, great reference.
Mm-hmm.
And when you know someone and you know their values and know who they are, it's like everything they do, you know already about. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So anything he presents to you, you're like, oh, well, I know what kind of person he is. So I know why he's doing this, and you know what his direction is going to be for it, and who he's going to, you know, showcase this to, and who he's going to work on and everything. So that's exactly how I feel about business. And you know, that's how I built Vamped too, is not only, you know, more than ever, I've been pushing myself out there, but
Mm-hmm.
Vamped has always been pushed out as a brand. I never looked at my agency as an agency where I hide behind, you know, the influencers and the clients we work with. I'm like,
Right.
you're going to know Vamped, and then you're going to know who we work with. So I've always been pushing the agency as a brand, marketing really heavy, like Monster, you know, that kind of stuff. So I was like, Vamped, you're going to remember this name.
Uh-huh.
And then you're going to be like, what do they do? You know? So, and now in 2021, I'm like, okay, now you're going to know Lindsey,
Uh-huh.
and you're going to know that I'm associated with Vamped. So yeah, it's been kind of like just opening up more and more layers
Or
of what
more
the
that
industry,
Vamp's
the business is.
associated with Lindsey. Not that you're, yeah, right?
Yes.
That's how it goes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Can I ask you,
So,
who's your favorite UFC fighter of all time?
you know what? Actually, I've always loved, I mean, we're actually putting a podcast together with Rampage Jackson. I love
Mm-hmm.
Rampage. I love Forrest. I'm a huge Conor McGregor fan. Um, who else? I think that's about it. I mean, my really good friend Tiki, you know, I've seen him develop into this amazing manager. He now, you know, manages all these big fighters and stuff because he
Mm-hmm.
used to be a fighter. And he's actually a perfect example of, you know, how a lot of influencers, even though at that time he wasn't an influencer, he was just a celebrity, you know, he'd have to show face of like this person. I would hate when he was in character. Like I would tell him, I'm like,
Mm.
I can't stand your character, you know? Um, and he would laugh because he had to do it. Like people knew him for this persona.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I love the person behind the scenes, the person that's like so empathetic and so helpful and will do anything for you. And that is a lot of times really hard to, you know, separate,
Yeah.
because you know you are known for that. And even two of these influencers, they're known for that, so they feel like when they meet you in person they also have to be that person, you know. And that's where I feel like I really do enjoy the transparency and authenticity of like Vamped, is because I want people to know that what they see and what we're pushing out there and things look happy and amazing is also what you're going to get when you see us.
Yeah.
You know, like you're going to get the real me.
Yeah.
You're not going to get this like suddenly I'm a different person.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the new business.
I love that you guys have created, and I think it's your idea specifically, but events, travel events, travel tours for influencers. And I
Hmm.
was checking out some of the videos, and you've got like 20, over 20 trips now, where you get the influencers and you take them, to the Philippines or Vegas or Iceland and all these cool places. I think that's
Yeah.
a genius idea, and one that I think the influencer world should embrace more of, because it just seems like a great thing to do. Um, a couple different things. I'm curious. Was that your idea, Lindsay? Did you come up with that?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about in 2014 when we went
Hmm.
on our first trip.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Have you ever
Yeah.
have you ever thought about making that into? We talked about reality shows, but as I was watching your videos, I was like, uh, these are amazing. And if they were reality shows, they could reach even more people, skyrocket the influencers that they were doing. I'm just curious if that's something that you thought about. I watched this reality show called Too Hot no, Too Hot
To handle,
to Handle.
to
Yes.
handle.
Did you see it? Did you
Yeah.
see it? Yeah. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
ridiculous show.
We
I Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, what the one of the girls on there we were actually trying to work with on getting her own podcast.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no, we actually were approached a while back um uh, for a pilot actually. So we did like 2 months of actually shooting for a pilot for the show
Oh, really?
that would travel influencers around the world. Yeah. But the thing is like with that experience, I mean, I was already hesitant to do it.
Yeah.
With that experience comes a lot of manipulation
Yeah.
of actually what you're projecting because it's a scripted reality is
Staged.
scripted.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah, and I understand why. I mean, they want everything to have like drama and all these things that are happening, but the audience doesn't realize that and they think it's real.
Yeah.
And you are either demonized after, and people were finding out that we were doing a pilot, and I was already getting hate mail
Yeah.
because some of the influencers that we were working with, they already had backlash because a few of them were actually already on reality TV. So it was infiltrating into like my emails.
Mm.
And I had called the casting director and I was like, look, I don't know if I want this person to be on our show because I'm already getting death threats, and we haven't even started.
Right.
And he's like, oh, this is just this world. And I was like,
That doesn't sound fun.
yeah, I'm good. Like
Yeah.
it's just not who I am. I don't want that kind of press. And that's once again kind of opportunities that you kind of have to either decide, do you want this in your life or do you not? Do you
Yeah.
want to be happy and healthy, or do you want to have to look over your shoulder, have this deep gut feeling of like, oh my God, I feel uncomfortable all day.
Yeah.
I just didn't want any of that. I don't think it's worth it. And kudos to whoever can actually deal with that process of limelight or whatever. But I can't personally deal with that. I can't deal with that kind of hate coming at me for no reason.
Yeah.
And it is a certain person that can go through that and kind of block that out. I can't block that out.
Well, that's another good example of your boundaries, being approached, or your boundaries being crossed a bit, and you say, okay, I've got to back out of this,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just not in alignment with who I am as a person. And people respect that in
Yeah.
the long run, without a doubt. Yeah.
I don't want to be famous. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There's a difference. I didn't come
Ooh.
to LA to be famous.
Yeah.
I
You're
came to,
Go ahead. Oh, I
yeah.
was just gonna say
I
you're sorry. You're looking for influencers, and you want to be an influencer that doesn't want to be famous, right? So
yeah.
that's the key. You want to work with people like
Hmm.
that, right? And you want to be that type of person, influencers that don't seek fame.
Exactly. There is a difference. I think
Hmm.
people be like, probably are listening or like, isn't it the same thing? No, it's not.
No.
Because I didn't come to LA to be famous. I didn't come to LA or start this business and the way I make noise in the industry is not because I want to be famous. It's because I want to make known that there are good people out there. And I wanted to build a community of good people. That doesn't mean I want to be famous.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I want paparazzi outside my door and I want to be on OK Magazine and all those things. No, I don't want that. I want to share my knowledge. I want to get out there in a way where I want to help others. And that has nothing to do with can you put me in a movie,
Yeah.
So there is a difference in that.
I think you just gave me the title to the podcast, The Value of Fame versus the Value of Influence, right?
Yeah,
And they're
I love
completely
that.
different things. Yes. Very cool.
I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we need, instead of reality TV, which is scripted and not reality, we need authentic TV, right?
Yeah. Which is never going to happen.
We don't know. Maybe never say never. It might happen one of these days, right? Well, I think that made a great show. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners? Any tips, any wisdom you want to drop on us before we wrap up?
I just want anyone who's listening to know that it's okay to be yourself. I think a lot of people have a really, really hard time thinking that they're going to be accepted for their quirkiness or their weird ideas. And there is a community out there who's going to appreciate all of that. And you have to stop looking at the numbers. You have to stop looking at your followers, your likes, your numbers, and you have to push out content and be a person in the world that is you. Because at the end of the day, you have to deal with you. You have to sleep with you. You have to be with you. So if you are pretending all day, you're never going to be really happy and you're never going to really enjoy the process because you're pretending. So I think no matter what, you have to know that whatever you enjoy, whatever you want to become is going to happen. You have to be patient. I really believe it's patience and just enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun. Yeah.
It's a great way to wrap up the show, Lindsey. If the listeners
Cool.
want to learn more about you and Vamped and Revamped and all the things you have going on, where's the best place they can do that at?
So you can find us at vamped.com. It's vamped.com. And it's the same on Instagram and YouTube. And the podcast I started where we talk with other influencers and other business owners in the space, the digital space, is Revamped Podcast. And then my personal is Lindsey Heppner, Linz Heppner. And yeah, that's it.
Cool. Lindsey, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. I've really enjoyed the conversation and learning more about what you guys do and diving deeper into the subject of influence. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Listeners, thank you guys for tuning in once again, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Goodbye, everybody.